basically, my read of the research literature says 4 things characterize settings where you see more routine walking, bicycling, and transit use. And they are a greater variety of different kinds of destinations and proximity. What a planner would say, a mix of land uses. 2, a good connected network of facilities for active travel, so walking, bicycling, think sidewalks, bicycle lanes, pathways, multi-use trails. 3, when I get to a destination, it is designed to reward me rather than punish me for showing up without my car. Think about most of what we've built in the last 30 or 40 years. It says, show up with your car, I'll show you right where to park it, but you want to get here on foot. I don't even know how you get to the front door, frankly, if you're on foot or on a bicycle. Right? And then the last one is it's got to be safe and accessible for everybody in the community, all ages, all incomes, all abilities and disabilities, somebody in a wheelchair or pushing a stroller or pulling a grocery cart, somebody who's visually impaired or blind. So these 4 things, I know this is a gross simplification, but it's essentially the piles the research falls into. You get these 4 things. Indeed, for the 6 years that I served on my local planning board, this was my mental checklist. I was asking, on every project we permitted, are we doing these things more than not doing them? Right? Creating a mix, good connected network, inviting and functional site design, safety and access for all. By the way, can illustrate all of what I'm talking about with pictures from this region. It's not like you got to go to Boulder, Colorado to see places that are like this. I mean, much of what we talk about land use is historical, small town, or even large city design at the neighborhood scale, right? Where you can live and work and shop and play, learn and pray in proximity, not separated, right? Whether the traditional Main Street or the urban neighborhood had those things. Neighborhood parks, compact housing, main streets that look more like this with often retail on the first floor and housing right above it, right? You know, sort of mixed use right down to the parcel level. And essentials like schools and post office right in town. 2 is the network of facilities, and it's not just sidewalks, but certainly those, but also on-street bike facilities, off-street bike facilities, and pedestrian facilities. Indeed, is that not the trail that you were talking about in Albany just a moment ago, Your Honor? And transit. I mentioned transit because there are a growing number of studies that tell us regular transit riders are statistically more likely to get their 30 minutes per day of physical activity. Without even consciously, it's not that transit riders are more likely to go to the gym. It means in the act of using transit. Is that surprising, by the way, to you guys? Right? Sort of intuitive, the act of, because think about it, all you have to do is walk 7 minutes to the bus, and then 7 minutes from the bus to your destination. And if you repeat that in the other direction, 4 times 7 is 28. Sounds a lot like 30, right? So it's that easy. Third, let me make a quick point about the bicycling. We talk about bicycle networks, and everybody assumes, Mark, do you want a bike lane on every road? Actually, I want a variety of facilities, and it depends very much on the land uses, what's going on there, and the type of road. How many cars, how fast, so traffic volumes and speeds, things like that, roadway design. But I do want to make a point that groups like the League of American Bicyclists and people that are researching this stuff have begun to see that we may have to think more carefully about the kinds of bike facilities if we really want to get lots of people bicycling, not just the strong and well-suited to it. So, for example, they've kind of broken the bicycling, potential bicycling world into 3 piles. There's the 30% of folks who say, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to be riding my bike to work, so don't even ask. And there's the 6 to 7% that they call the strong and fearless riders. And they're willing to ride even when they have to be right on the road and act like a vehicle and signal and take the lane and all that kind of stuff. The interesting point is there's this 60% in between who are interested, they term them interested but concerned. They'd like to ride, but they're really nervous about having to share the lane, as that Cheryl suggests, or even having to get out in front and use this, what we call bicycle box. They feel kind of exposed, or maybe their skills aren't there yet. The interested but concerned, some of the research suggests, will benefit from having what we would call protected or buffered facilities like that. So you'll notice this bicycle lane has at least a buffering strip here. And indeed, that row of parked cars even separates them further from the active lane. And there are lots of different ways to do this. And I'm sure you've seen some of these. They certainly have them up in Portland. Or fully separated facilities like this trail. That's the American River Trail in Sacramento. It's really actually quite a lovely trail. It goes right from downtown Sacramento in the Old Town District near their transit center all the way out to the Folsom Reservoir. Anybody been on the American River Trail, by the way? It's quite lovely, isn't it? And this is actually the least attractive section. It's the last 2 miles that they got the right-of-way for. It gets you into right to downtown. I also submit to you it's the most important 2 miles. Why would I say that? Why would I say this part that's practically underneath the elevated expressway that connects? Why am I saying that's the most important? This is not a rhetoric. Say it? And what do you mean by that? you can actually get to stuff. You could use it for what we would call functional trips, not just a nice recreational ride on a Saturday morning. So the fact that the wealthy folks that can put their bikes on the back of the car, can drive to a trailhead, take their bikes off and ride on a Saturday morning, the 20 miles out to Folsom Reservoir, I love it. That's great. Glad you can do that. But this guy, he could ride to work every day there. Indeed, this reminds me of a little bit of advice I'd like to give. Often in workshops, I facilitate lots of workshops, we will have somebody, perhaps somebody who's got a sign on the bottom line and say yes to paying for that trail, a mayor, a city councilor, a planning board member, say, you know, I don't understand why you're asking us to pay for a trail here. Underneath that expressway practically, I would never ride there. I don't think anybody's going to ride there. I know I never would. I now have a new answer to that. Would you like to hear it? Would you like to hear my answer? I can give you the script right now. It's a fairly straightforward script. The script is this. If they say, I would never ride there, your response is, now get ready to write this down so I don't want you to forget it. Shut up. That's what you're supposed to say. Shut up. 2 words. What you're really supposed to say is, I don't really care whether you would. Because if that guy does, he's one less car you have to compete with on that highway. He's one less car you have to compete with when you're parking downtown. He's reduced his greenhouse gas footprint, which affects you. His air quality impacts and stormwater runoff impacts are lessened so they aren't contaminating your air and water. Furthermore, because we're now all in the insurance pool together, when he doesn't have a heart attack, your insurance premiums don't go up. Shut up. Because whether you ever use the trail or not doesn't matter. You will benefit from it. And I know that sounds insane. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. All kidding aside, I do mean by that we should change the tenor of the conversation. Historically, what we've done is sort of made the argument, well, but there are some people who will ride there and we've really got to accommodate, we've got to give people choice. I think we should be more unabashed about this. I think we should say, that trail benefits everybody, including those who don't use it, by virtue of all those things and many more that I haven't even alluded to yet. And we should not be sort of begging for the crumbs off the edge of the table, basically. We should be saying, this should be central to our design. In fact, that trail should have been designed into that corridor when the highway was built, and now we're thinking that way, by the way. Third, when I get to my destination, does it reward me or punish me for showing up without my car? And we got lots of this kind of stuff, right? Standard sort of what we've built over the last 30 or 40 years, big parking lot, building setback, requirements like 7 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet of retail or whatever, or the stuff we built many years before that. And, we see this all over America. I'm not blaming these communities because I happen to have photos of them. I can take these pictures anywhere. The more traditional downtown districts that met these criteria of, I think, being inviting and functional for the pedestrian and bicyclist, and the stuff we built over the last 30 or 40 years that didn't. And it's stuff like building up at the street and things that we have historically called amenities, but that I don't allow to be called that anymore. Indeed, in planning documents, I say, when people want to say, let's include amenities like street trees and benches and suggest awnings on the building, those aren't amenities, they're functional attributes. For my 77-year-old mom, on a really hot day in August, if there's a bench and a tree that provides shade, she might be willing to walk to the pharmacy down the street. Take those away, she's less likely to. So they're functional attributes for her, not just amenities nice to have. And so I think we have to talk about this stuff that way, because we know it matters with the design of the destination. Last but not least, we've got to make it safe and accessible for everybody. Hey, there's that very cool roundabout that we were just talking about moments ago. And these tools are in the engineers' toolkits now. Things like roundabouts, or simpler things like curb extensions, which allow the pedestrians to step out, show their intent to cross, and be visible beyond the line of parked cars. Or in mid-block crossing islands. Can somebody tell me, why is that pedestrian not walking straight across the street, but forced to angle to the right before she continues through the island? Why would we intentionally design it that way? Yeah, it gets her looking toward the oncoming traffic by design. So the point is, engineers know how to design this stuff. If all we do is ask them to move more cars faster, they can do that too. We've done 40 years of that. Wider, straighter, more lanes. But if we say build something where pedestrians, bikes, transit can coexist with cars safely, they can do that as well.